I want a king like that. Everything, really, that the prophet said that he would be. A wonderful counselor, eternal God, mighty Father, Prince of Peace, righteous, a righteous judge. All this and more is who he is. And I have to tell you another truth. I probably would not be interested at all in the Scriptures, in the Torah, in the commandments, if it wasn't for him. He is the one that makes that real. The reason I feel like I want to do what the commandments say is because I want to please him. You know, it's personal. That's what makes it something real. And that's what makes him a king who can do what no other king has ever been able to do. You know, we have had governments come and go, and they all fail. But the kingdom of Yeshua Messiah will not fail. It's not failing right now. It's victorious. And who would ever believe that a kingdom could become victorious because the king was executed as a criminal on a cross? As Paul kind of pointed out in one point, this is like a crazy religion. You know, to think that you can have victory through being put to death as a criminal, and this is our king. Well, this seems ridiculous to many people. But the fact that the king of the kingdom is willing to die for every one of those subjects of that kingdom because his love is that great, is that much, that's something that a kingdom can truly be founded upon. That makes sense to me, even though it seems crazy to the world. So this is Yahweh's plan. It is so different from what man has ever thought, you know, so different than how people have ever thought. But here's something I want to tell you about what happened with Messiah when he came. He was born of the house of David. He was a Jew. He kept the Torah. He kept the commandments. He did not become a Gentile. And he said to us, "Follow me." So what does that mean? If we're going to do what he did, and he kept the commandments, and he was part of Israel, what does that mean for you and I? That we can just go off and do some whole different thing like the rest of the world? Isn't that what got Israel into trouble? Doing just that? Or shouldn't we really follow him? Shouldn't we do the things that he did? Shouldn't we keep the commandments that he kept? Shouldn't we keep the appointments of Yahweh that he kept? And the commandments that he kept? You see, it's very simple when you really think about it. This is part of following him. And before he died, the night before he died, he brought together these 12 men. And we all know these 12 men had been chosen because they were the leaders of the renewed Israel. And one of them betrayed him. And isn't there always one like that? So that's not a surprise. But with the others, he promised them. He said, "I am making a covenant with you for a kingdom, and you will rule over the 12 tribes of Israel." What did he mean when he said that? Did he say, "I'm going to set up this Gentile organization over here called the church, and I'm going to make you all bishops"? Why do we think that? This was entirely an Israelite deal. They were all of Judah, Judeans. They all lived there in Judea. They all had an Israelite heritage. All of this was an Israelite thing. So why do people say this is the beginning of Christianity, a new religion? It's not. Now, I'm not against Christians. I think it's wonderful that people put their faith in Messiah, whatever they want to call themselves. And I believe if those people do that, they can find true salvation by putting their faith in Messiah. But they, I see as captives. They are captives of a religious system. They are captives just as much as the 10 tribes were captives to the Assyrians that came and took them off the land. They are captives just as much as the Jews who were taken away by the Babylonians. And in fact, they are captives of something the Bible calls Babylon the Great. Now, Yeshua came at a time that was another pivotal time period. When he came, it marked the visitation of Yahweh on Judah. And all the people were going to have to make a decision about him. And there had to be a separating work. You know, people say that the Jews rejected Christ. And I have to tell you, that's a lie. I will say many of the Jews rejected Christ. But you know what? Many of them accepted him. It was not a situation like people are told even in seminaries today, where all the Jews rejected Christ and therefore God then went and put his favor on the Gentile church. That's not true. From Mount Sinai forward, Yahweh has been dealing with Israel. All the covenants are with Israel. Where does this Gentile church keep their covenant? Where is their covenant? What verse in the Scriptures tells us about a covenant between God and a Gentile entity? Is that verse in the Bible? The renewed covenant that was made that night between Yeshua and those leaders of the renewed Israel was an Israelite covenant. And what happened in that first century after Messiah ascended to heaven is that people were added to renewed Israel. Gentiles, people from any nationality, could then come and be grafted in to renewed Israel. But it continued to be Israel. And those first believers continued to behave as Israelites. They kept the Torah. They kept the commandments. They continued on that stream of Israel. That's what they did. The house of David was restored to its place among those believers. That's how things were in the first century. It's all clear right here. There was no new religion established. It was perhaps a new or renewed phase of what Yahweh had been doing all along with Israel. And it was his kingdom in the world. When people came in among those early Messianic believers, they knew they had been touched by the kingdom. And they knew it because they experienced the power of Yahweh. People were healed. Miracles did happen. But more important than anything, the people really knew the true God. Nobody anymore had to say, "No Yahweh," because They all knew Yahweh, from the smallest of them to the greatest of them. This is the kingdom. Well, there came a moment where, as they say, the rubber meets the road. Because for a period of about 40 years from the time Yeshua started preaching, there had been this period of separation in Israel. And the believers were going out throughout Judea. They were preaching the message of Messiah, asking for their Israelite brethren to come and join them under the true king of Israel. And many did, thousands did. Even thousands of the religious leaders did. This is all documented fact in Scripture. And Yahweh had told them, this is in Luke chapter 21, where things would end up. That after this period of separation was over, there would come a time where there would be pointed stakes put in the ground to form a siege wall all the way around Jerusalem. And that terrible, terrible destruction was going to come. And Messiah said, when you see encamped armies around Jerusalem, flee. Get out. Don't stop to get your coat. Don't go in your house and get your favorite pictures of your family. Don't go in the house after your wedding ring. Nothing can be precious to you but your life. When you see encamped armies, run for the mountains. Well, this actually happened. It was so amazing what happened because the Roman armies came in. This was in 66, I believe, 66 A.D. And they encamped around Jerusalem. And then for no good reason, after a period of being encamped around the city, they withdrew. And this gave the many thousands of believers who were gathered in there for Passover an opportunity to obey Messiah. And they functioned as a nation. They had their leadership worked as a nation, and they went smooth as clockwork out of that city. They already had a place already in the area of Pella in Syria. And the whole bunch of them, by the thousands, left. And they went into this area of Pella. After that, the Romans came back. And everything Yeshua said was going to happen, happened. It is a matter of documented history. And they made the siege wall around the city, and they put the city into siege. And it was terrible what happened. And the people that were left after all the believers were gone, see, these are the people that had been separated away over a period of decades, okay? So all of the righteous people were believers, and they were gone. All the people who were inside the city, they were wicked people. And when you read about how they behaved, it is amazing. They could not even get any kind of leadership going because all the leaders were killing one another to be in charge. And the situation was terrible. And really, I can't tell you how terrible it is because I couldn't even say that on something that's going out to the public. If you were to read the history, you would be horrified at the behavior of those people under siege. And they were people, you have to understand, who had been given over to this destruction. There was no calling out to Yahweh now to be saved. You know, that point does come. We have such a loving and righteous God. Some people depend on the fact that, oh, I can do this bad thing today, and then tomorrow Yahweh will forgive me. Well, you know what? That might work. But there's going to be a day where that doesn't work. And that's what happened for those people who were trapped there in Jerusalem. They were stuck. And they were like rats in a barrel. And one way or another, they were facing their destruction. And it wasn't just the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Realize that people had come there for the festival, all the Jews from far and wide. And they were there, and they were trapped.